Hello, Algebra 2. We are doing section 10.2 today, which are angles of rotation. And this is just really important for stuff you're going to do the rest of this year and also for pre-calculus and FST next year. So the standard position is when an angle has the vertex at the origin and then one ray is on the positive x-axis. We're going to draw that and we're going to label the initial side and the terminal side. So the initial side is the ray that's on the x-axis and the terminal side is going to be the ray that is not on the x-axis. So I typed out those definitions for you and then just highlighted some of the important parts. That's a good way to just make sure you're focusing on those key definitions when they are already typed out for you. So with the positive rotation, we are always going to start at 0 degrees, which is right here on the x-axis. Okay, so this is 0 degrees. This would be 90 degrees, 180. So each quadrant's 90. Add another 90 to 180, you get 270. And then one full time around would give you 360. So 0 and 360 are the same place. The initial side is this ray on the x-axis. So this is what we call the initial side, what we just drew, this ray here. And then the terminal side is going to be the other ray that forms your angle. So I'm just going to make this one here. And that is the terminal side. I'll use this darker color. Okay, so this is the terminal side here. All right, and then when you make the angle, you will start at the initial and then you'll draw your arrow showing that that's where your angle is. And whatever it is, we are going to label it. Now, when you have a positive rotation, you are going to be going counterclockwise. And then when you have a, negative rotation, you are going to be going clockwise. So again, I'm going to start, and you are always going to start here at that 0 degrees. That's your initial side. And now we are going to do a negative rotation. So this is my initial side. And if we're doing a negative rotation, we can think, again, this is still like your start at 0. But if you go clockwise, this would be negative 90 degrees. This would be negative 180. This would be negative 270. And then the whole way around would be negative 360. Okay, now I'm going to draw the angle the same as I did before. It's just if it's negative, then you're going to start at the initial side here, and you're going to go clockwise. So that is going to be your angle. Okay, so that arrow part is going to be important there. And again, this is our terminal side. Okay, so to sum up some of those things that we just did, your angle of rotation, you are rotating the terminal side. And then the initial side is always going to start here at your 0 degrees. Okay, so keeping the initial side in place. Okay, that's always on the positive x-axis. Okay, and it starts at 0 degrees. That's my at symbol at 0 degrees. Okay, so if you are turning it counterclockwise, that's a positive angle. Okay, and if you are going clockwise, then it is going to be a negative angle. Okay, so clockwise, like you think the way that the clock moves, right? This is like 3 o'clock. It's moving around. And angles can be rotated more than 360. So let's just draw a quick example of that. So if you draw like your XY axis. Okay, and then if you wanted to show that the rotation was more than 360, again, you still start at your initial side, which I'll put here. And then when you do your rotation, I'm just going to make this. When you do your rotation, it would be one full rotation and then your arrow. So you have the one full 360 and then it goes around. So it's like a spiral if it's more than 360. Okay, so let's draw some of these angles. Again, I'm using my phone to do this, so I'm sorry it's not as nice as my document camera. So we're going to draw an angle with the given measure in standard position. So your standard position, again, you can just take your pencil to do this, or you can use any color marker that you want. I like using the marker because I feel like it stands out a little bit more. And some of these you are going to be doing estimates, but we want to do some thoughtful estimates, okay? So keep in mind, we know that halfway is 180. We know that this is 270, and then the full time around is 360. So if I want to go 320, I know that that's about 40 degrees from 360. When you think of each quadrant is 90 degrees. Half of 90 degrees is 45. So if this is 40 degrees, I'm going to visualize about halfway, and then I'm just going to draw it so that it's a little less than that. And that's like where your estimation comes in. Obviously, it should be in quadrant 4. And then you're going to put your theta value in. So you would just draw your arrow like this. And then you will label it as your theta equals 320 degrees. So theta is a symbol we're going to be using a lot for the angle measure. Okay, and I did talk about the quadrants. If you need a quick refresher on what the quadrant is, remember that 1 starts here. This is quadrant 1. This is quadrant 2, and it just goes counterclockwise from there. Quadrant 3, quadrant 4. Okay, so we want to know what those are when I'm referencing the quadrants. Okay, so for B 110, again, you're going to start on the initial side. So you always are going to start at this place at 0. And now we're going negative 110 degrees. So if I know this is negative 90, because now I'm going clockwise, this is negative 180. 110 is about 30 degrees past that. And I'm also just going to label this here like this is your 40 degrees. That's how you know. So you can think of this as, okay, I'm going 30 degrees past 90, or sorry, 20 degrees past 90. So if this is 45, if I do half of my half, that looks like a good estimate here. And we're going to draw our angle. So that's theta equals negative 110. And yes, you are supposed to do like the theta equals and then put that in there. So this angle here, we know that that angle is 20 degrees. So this 20 plus this 90 would be the 110, and then it's negative because of the direction in which it's going. All right, now 990. Whoa. Okay, so obviously that's going to be more than one rotation around, because one full rotation would be 360. If you did another full rotation, 360 plus 360 would be 720. Okay, if you did another rotation, again, just add 360 to that. If you add 360, you'd get 1080. Okay, so now, if I know this is 1080, remember, each one of these are 90 degrees. So if you subtracted 90 degrees from 1080, what would you get? Oh, it happens to be 990 exactly, right? So the plus 10 would make 1,000, plus 80, 10 and 80 is 90. All right, so we're going to have to do just a few rotations here. So again, we're going to start at the initial side and think about how many rotations that we're going to have to do. I know that I end up here, okay? So if I started here, and it's positive, so I'm going to go counterclockwise. So if I go around one time, that's 360. Okay, if I go around twice, that's 720. And I don't want to go that full other time, or else I would be at 1080. And that is going to be my spiral. And then I will label this as my theta is 990 degrees. All right, so that is how you draw your angles in standard position. Now we're going to talk about coterminal angles. So coterminal angles are angles that are in standard position with the same terminal side. Okay, so remember, this is the terminal side. Those would be the same in those cases. A really quick way to find them is to add or subtract 360 from the given angle. And then you can also add or subtract multiples of 360. So if they are large values, you might have to add 360 more than once or twice. So really, you will just be adding or subtracting 360 multiple times. Or if you think of, okay, I know that 360 times 2 is 720. Okay, you could add or subtract 720 degrees. Okay, 360 times 3, which we just did above there, we know is 1080. So you could also add or subtract 1080 degrees. Okay, and that's just like you are adding and subtracting 360 twice or 3 times. So most of the time, this is what you're going to do. You're just going to add and subtract 360. Let's draw a picture of what these coterminal angles look like. So just using my initial side and my terminal side. Okay, I'm going to draw an angle here, and this angle is going to be 135 degrees. We're going to talk about those specifics first, but I want you to look at, and I want you to see that there's always going to be a positive angle and a negative angle associated with this. Okay, so this would be the positive angle if you are going counterclockwise. Okay, so I'm going to give this to you. We're going to say this is 135 degrees. Okay, well, with that same position, if I went in the negative direction, let's think about what this is going to be. Okay, so if this is 135, remember here you have 90, here you have 180, here you have 270, this is 360. Okay, And then if you're going in the negative direction, this is negative 180 here. So we want to figure out what this angle is. Well, if this is 90, if you do 135 minus 90, we know that this angle here is 45, which means this angle here is 45. So 180 plus 45 is going to be 225. So this is going to be negative 225 degrees. Okay, so it's important that you think of these quadrants as those 90-degree angles. Okay, so if we know this is 45 and we know this is 45, right? You could think of it as 180 plus 45 is 225 and then make it negative because that's the way that it's going. Or you could do 135, which was given, minus 360, and that will give you negative 225. Okay, which is that angle. Well, we talked about you could also add 360. So if you took 135 and you added 360, you get 495 degrees. Okay, and that is also coterminal to this angle. Let's draw in what that would look like. Okay, so if you had 495 degrees, all that is 360 plus your 135. So if you were at 135, you would just go one more time around, and it would look like this. Here's your 360, that first spiral, and then you would go here. I said, because I noticed you couldn't see that. My hand was in the way. So here's your 360, and then there's your 135. And that's your theta would be 495. And that's coterminal as well. Okay, so those two are the same. And really, there's an infinite amount because you could go around as many times as possible, keep adding 360. All of those are going to be coterminal. You could keep subtracting 360 from this. All of those would be coterminal angles. All right, and then for example 2, find the measures of a positive angle and a negative angle that are coterminal with each given angle. So for 65 degrees, you are finding the coterminal angle, and for the positive, it is really just as simple as being able to add the 65 plus 360 to get 425. That would be a positive. And then for the negative, you could do 65 minus 360 and get negative 295. Okay, you don't have to draw that out. You can just do that there, but I just want to give you a visual. So 65 is going to be in quadrant 1. Here's 45, so it's about 20 degrees past that. So what you're doing is you're saying, okay, if this is your theta at 65, you're finding the coterminal angle, which starts at the same place and then goes around in the other direction. Okay, so if this is your angle here, 65, to find the coterminal angle, you're finding this, which is really just 360 minus 65, and that's the negative one. Okay. All right, B, your positive angle. There's a couple different ways that you could do this. So if you added 360, you could just do 410 plus 360, and that would be 770 degrees. That would be a possible answer. But now look what happens when you go to find the negative. If you subtract 360, if you do 410 minus 360, you still get a positive answer. You get 50. Okay, so both of those are positive, whether you added or subtracted. To find the negative, you're going to have to subtract the 360 again, okay? Or you could think of it as subtracting a multiple. So you could just do 50 minus 360 to get negative 310. Or you could have just from the start taken 410 and subtracted the multiple, the 720, and again you'd get negative 310. Okay, so either method would work there. All right, now the last one is 360. So for your positive, if you add 360, we talked about if you do 360 plus 360, you're going to get 720. So 360 plus 360, 720, that is positive. Okay, so we're good. Now for the negative, if you were to take 360 and subtract 360, you get 0. Okay, 0 is not positive or negative. So we have to do this again. So this is not positive or negative here. Okay, so we are going to subtract 360 again. Okay, and that would be your coterminal angle. All right, this video is getting a little long, so I'm gonna just make 2 videos that is all about the coterminal angles and how to draw an angle, and then I'm gonna do part 2 just in another video in case you want to break this up a little bit.